Could the Milwaukee Brewers be dealing someone from their crowded outfield? We'll judge the entire outfield next. And JR Radcliffe from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel also joins us. All that and more coming up next on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good to have you along here on Locked On Brewers. The Brewers are going to have a busy offseason, but as you look at the outfield positions, could they trade somebody out there? Not that you want to, but you could get something in return to help somewhere else. Chuck Freeman, longtime sportscaster here in the state of Wisconsin and proud host of Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. This episode, as always, brought to you by some terrific folks. And this one is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks, download the app, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, win $50 instantly when you play that first $5 lineup. You don't even have to win it. You just got to play it. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, I was just looking at the outfield positions right now. And I look at 5 primary guys: Jackson Chourio, Christian Yelich, Sal Frelick, Blake Perkins, Garrett Mitchell. We'll talk about who they could possibly trade coming up here in a little bit. But as far as the outfield is concerned, I mean, these guys played great defensively. Overall, great defensively. You couldn't ask for what they did, taking away hits, home runs particularly. They did so much of that last year. Defensively, the speed from foul line to foul line, just amazing. I thought amazing. Now, they're one of the best defenses in baseball. Did it get us anywhere? No. It got us a first-round exit in the playoffs. Could use a little bit more pop in that outfield. But for the most part, the outfield was pretty good, except offensively. Again, they could have used a few could have used more power in the outfield. But we'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit. Number 1, Jackson Chourio. Obviously, he's a future MVP candidate. He'd say he can get a couple of votes this past year. He became one of, if not the team's top offensive threat. Look at the postseason, the 2 home runs he hits, and numerous big hits throughout the year. Let's take away all his stats and his home runs. We watch Brewer baseball every day, and we saw the big moments that Jackson came up and delivered in. From the very first day, on opening day, when he was in leadoff spot in March against the New York Mets, when he drew a 4-pitch walk, and continuing on through the 162 games in the regular season. Yeah, he went through a little early season slump, but the Brewers did not panic at all and send him down. He stayed on the team. They did pinch hit for him one at bat, and he got down, but not down totally on himself. He had some veterans on the team to help him through it, like Freddie Peralta. But Jackson, a young guy, thought very mature, handled everything, 18 years old, a heck of a lot better than the last teenage phenom we had through here, Gary Sheffield, who wanted to be traded and who hated his teammates and everything else. And we later learned with Gary Sheffield, it was a me problem, not a team problem with Gary. With Jackson Chourio, not the same. Just a real good team guy, fit in well, and had a lot of confidence in himself. Again, one of their top offensive, if not the top offensive threat. I think we can safely say that 8-year contract the Brewers signed him to in the offseason, they took a shot at it, and so far, so good. But a guy you can firmly count on and play him anywhere in the outfield. You can play him in center, you can play him left, you can play him right. Right now, it looks like left or right field is the place to go with Chourio on an everyday basis. You don't know what Christian Yelich can do offensively every day, because you don't know if he's going to bounce back from the back surgery. We'll see about that coming up here in a little bit. But Jackson Chourio firmly entrenched into a starting everyday outfield spot with the Milwaukee Brewers. No platoon necessary every day, no matter who's pitching. All right, let's go to Christian Yelich. Now, he's coming off the injury and the surgery, most importantly. And the reports are that surgery is going to correct his back issue. Again, that's what the reports are. We won't actually know it until he actually is able to test himself. And what happens with Yelich is he goes out there and plays on a regular day, everyday basis. He starts hitting. Things are going well. And then the back tightens up. And then it's 1. and 2 days and 3 days and 5 days and 10 days. So I'm hoping that the back gets healed here. But as of right now, going into spring training, I'm not counting that in the offseason. He's got all this offseason, the rest and rehab that. But I can't count on him being an everyday guy unless I know that back is going to hold up. Offensively, yeah, I batted .315. He was one of the better offensive players when he was able to play. But you got to be able to depend on him. And right now, I don't know if you can depend on him. I'm not going to say, well, the surgery fixed everything. Who knows? Who knows what's going on there? Anytime you go under the knife, especially the back, who knows? But Christian Yelich, of course, he's an everyday guy, but you're going to have to spell him. The Brewers have said he can't play first base. They're not going to put him at first base. But a guy who's a big-time threat when he was not in the lineup. The Brewers could have used a threat like that many times this year, and especially in the postseason. Especially in the postseason when you had to bat Gary Sanchez in the heart of the order. Could have been Christian Yelich, but you couldn't count on him because he was out with the back surgery. Can we count on him going forward? I don't know. I want to put him in my everyday, obviously the opening day lineup he's in, but can you count on him every day? $1 million question. Sal Frelick, wish he had more power. Yeah, he blasted that one in the playoffs where he dug in and put one into the upper deck. Would have loved to see more of that of him this year. Bat at .259 was not a great offensive year for Sal Frelick. But effort, hustle, defense, that's all there with this guy. All there. Is it good enough? Is there more to Sal Frelick than this? A year ago, maybe not so, we weren't even talking about dealing a guy like Frelick. But could you trade a guy like Frelick? We'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit. As an everyday player, well, when you got Garrett Mitchell out there as well, someone's going to have to sit. You got Jackson Chourio every day. Christian Yelich, you hope every day. With Frelick, Perkins, and Mitchell has got to stay healthy too. Hit the big home run in the postseason to win Game 2 against the Mets. But you love to see more about it. You hear how great of an athlete he is. And he can. He's defensively terrific. But can you count on him to play every day? If I could count on him every day, if I knew Garrett Mitchell was going to stay healthy, he's my everyday center fielder. And Jackson Chourio's in right. And in a perfect world, Mitchell's my everyday center fielder. Yelich in right. Chourio in right. Yelich in left. And Sal Frelick, I find a way to move him. Not that I don't want to move him. But if I could count on those other guys and have Blake Perkins as my utility outfielder, I think you get something back for Frelick. Okay, not that I want to trade him again. I'm not down on him, but I think he's a piece where you could help other positions on this team in a package deal. So I would be okay with that. You got Chourio, Yelich, Mitchell, Perkins, and Frelick. Or you have to keep Frelick because of the insurance piece for Yelich because you don't know what you're going to get. Again, I don't want to trade Frelick, but if I'm choosing between Frelick and Mitchell, Mitchell is my guy. If I want one of those two guys to play every day, Mitchell is the guy I'm choosing. Some of you may choose Frelick. I'm choosing Garrett Mitchell. And Blake Perkins, not an everyday guy, great defensively, can't hit, had a nice April and May, but Blake Perkins is not an everyday outfielder. We know that. Utility. Nice utility guy to have. Fourth outfielder. Blake Perkins. Fourth or fifth outfielder. Blake Perkins. But once again, I put Chourio in right, Yelich in center, Yelich in left, Mitchell in center. What could you trade? What could you get back for Frelick? And what'd you think of trading Mitchell? We'll get to that real quickly coming up here next. Also, we're going to talk to JR Radcliffe coming up here in a little bit. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. PrizePicks is the way to go if you want to win some money. Best way to get in all the real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less from at least two players for a shot up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with PrizePicks. PrizePicks, again, 4 correct picks can get you as many as 100 times your money, but you need to sign up today. You get $50 instantly when you play $5. Whether you win or lose, you get $50 instantly with that $5 play. Again, you don't even have to win to get that $50 bonus. PrizePicks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts. Taco Tuesday, each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value to your lineup. So, download the PrizePicks app today. PrizePicks, download it wherever you download your apps. Use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get the $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Okay, if I was going to make a trade with one of these guys in the offseason, don't come at me because I want to trade somebody. I'm just saying, if the right deal came along, and there's nothing wrong with keeping Mitchell and Frelick, but if I want one guy to be my everyday outfielder, I'm going with Sal Frelick. I'm going with Garrett Mitchell. I'm trading Sal Frelick. Mitchell, my everyday center fielder. I'd roll it with him, even with the injury. I would roll it with Garrett Mitchell with his injury history. And who knows? With Frelick, get back a starting pitcher. You might be able to get back a young third baseman. You're always looking for controllability. But Frelick would be part of a package deal if I were to trade him. But of the guys who you would trade in this offseason, obviously Chourio's out. Yelich is out. I'd keep Mitchell, and Perkins fits in nicely with what the Brewers do as a fourth outfielder. Sal Frelick would be my guy. And I know when I brought that up last year and I just kind of floated it out there, I got a lot of heat. I don't think I'd get as much heat now. That if you traded Sal Frelick in the offseason, with the fact that he's got some controllability there with arbitration years, that's always attractive in a trade deal for teams, especially smaller market teams. I'd have to really, really, really think about it. I would. Sal Frelick. Not that I want to, again, but with Chourio, Yelich, Frelick, Perkins, and Mitchell, I see 4 of those 5 guys as everyday outfielders. I do see Sal Frelick as an everyday guy. Wish he had more pop in the bat. It's just not happening. Wish he could for a better average. Who knows? Garrett Mitchell, I think he's the most talented of him and Frelick. Garrett Mitchell is my everyday center fielder going into the season next year. All right. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. You get our podcast on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcasts. We are there. Please follow us along in the offseason. We got a busy offseason, lots to talk about. And our growing YouTube page. Search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. Please, that'll help us grow the podcast as we continue to become the #1 Brewers podcast on the internet. Follow us again on YouTube. Search Locked On Brewers and hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Had a chance to catch up with JR Radcliffe. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Look at JR Radcliffe coming up here in just a second. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You can get a big return on FanDuel these days. We'll tell you about that. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, so much more on the same page. Where you place your bets, easy to move around. The payoffs are terrific, easy to get your cash when you win, and so much more. But the live betting, you got to check it out. And you'll get started on FanDuel when you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel, FanDuel.com. Go there, roam around, check it out a little and do whatever, but you're going to enjoy the site. Again, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel. JR Radcliffe is joining us right now from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. You read his Brewers coverage, sports coverage of all things, but we're going to talk Brewers baseball with him right now. JR, it is great talking to you, my friend.
Yeah, great talking to you too, Chuck. How are things?
Well, it's great. The off season, I think it's going to be a busy off season. The Brewers have to, they got to stay ahead of the curve here. Right now, they're the kingpins of the NL Central. They won it by a handy margin, but as you know, JR, you've been around this a long time. that could change in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think it kind of did change for them, even though they were, the champion last year. No, they moved to the bottom of the pile in terms of expectations, in terms of perspective, national perspective, local perspective too, for that matter. I don't think any of us were like, oh, keep an eye. They're sneaky good. They might win the division. Yeah. I didn't think that. And then not only do they win it handily. So a lot of those guys are coming back. I mean, every offseason will be busy. This will be a busy offseason, but so much of that stuff is spoken for, to the point that they even have assuming health, a little bit of a surplus in the outfield. So they really are in good position to keep this going. They've gone from, do they have the pieces to, well, we just saw they did. And now all those pieces, with a couple exceptions, are going to be back in 2025. So this is a great position to be in, but like you said, maybe, the team that's on the bottom right now might be, except if you're the Pirates, they're going to stay on the bottom, but everybody else could be in this, factor into this race.
Yeah. The Pirates are the one exception. I think they're going to rule the bottom until otherwise, they always tease us a little bit, and here come the Pirates. They're off to a 10-9 start, but
I fell for it this year. I thought they're the team. In July 1st, I thought this is the team. Boy, was I wrong. Was I wrong.
They got a couple of nice players. And I like Brian Reynolds and a few other guys in that team, but they always find a way to sink eventually. The outfield, this outfield spot, crowded outfield. And I was saying before you came on, JR, that not that I want to trade Sal Frelick, Garrett Mitchell. I think that there's possibility that you maybe, because I see both of those guys as starters, and they're always going to find their playing time, but they're valuable pieces to trade. Would you trade one or the other?
I keep thinking about this, Chuck, and I just don't have a good answer. First of all, in my head, Christian Yelich has had some injury issues, so I don't think you can just look at the outfield and say, well, it's Christian Yelich, Jackson Chourio, and pick one of the other guys. Yeah. Garrett Mitchell at this point is the best center fielder among those four guys. You throw Frelick, obviously Blake Perkins is a very good center fielder, but he doesn't hit the way that Garrett Mitchell does. I think naturally you would look at that picture and say Garrett Mitchell is the most likely to be traded because he is a guy who can play center. Brewers have that in reserve. He's a tremendous athlete. He's a guy who can hit for power. He had a great year. He had a really, really good year in 2024. He wasn't healthy until June 1st or July 1st, whenever that Rockies series started. So he missed a good chunk of the season. And that's kind of part of his story is, can you rely on him to be healthy? And I think the answer is probably not. I think getting 3 good months out of him was a little bit of an upset over the course of the closing part of the season. So he's an unstable asset but also I don't think they can part with him. He's gotten to the point, he's crossed that threshold of being from useful utility piece to, okay, now we actually have to talk about him being one of their best 5 players. That's actually on the table for Garrett Mitchell, especially when you throw in the defense. But talking about defense, Sal Frelick is awfully good. Now, he doesn't hit the ball hard. I think we're going to let that postseason home run color our impression of him. He is not
much of it though.
Such a bomb. It was so amazing, but he's not a good offensive player. He's just not that guy right now. There is room to grow. And I don't know if there's room to grow into a great offensive player. He would be the odd guy out if you're making an outfield that includes Yelich, Chourio, and Mitchell. But there's just so much value there. They've talked about the third base thing, which is an open position essentially on this roster right now. If Ortiz moves to short, I don't know what they do. Every option I feel like leaves them short somehow, not necessarily in bodies, but if you take Frelick out of the equation, you lose a really good defensive option and a guy who could play either corner spot, also maybe third base. If you take Mitchell out, you lose the best hitter of the lot. And now Frelick is your center fielder. Do you trust that to the same degree as Mitchell, or even maybe trying Chourio there? I mean, there's a lot of combinations, and I don't know what they're going to do there.
I like Sal. I like the hustle. I like the defense and what he does there. I wish he had more power. Didn't have a great offensive year. I wonder, because a year ago, people would never even entertain the thought of, because we were so high on Frelick, especially the way he came in. I wonder if there's more there with Frelick, if there is an upside.
I kind of look at Gavin Lux. Now, he's a right-handed hitter, Kenosha native, playing for the Dodgers this year, as a possible comp. He's like I said, different side of the plate, very different profile in many respects. But that is a guy who's, I guess you could call him undersized. He's 6'2". He's not like Sal Frelick undersized, but he really just started hitting the ball harder, right? He really just started swinging harder and pounding the ball. And he had a phenomenal second half of the season. I don't know if that's the type of thing you can just unlock for anybody. There are a couple other examples of guys. Victor Robles comes to mind, of guys who, a little undersized, they were just not doing anything, in terms of hard contact at the plate. And then something changed. I'd like to think that's in there for Frelick. He had good, decent, he hit for decent velocity in the minor leagues. He's never going to be a power hitter. He's never going to be a guy who, gets you an 850 OPS or anything like that. But he is somebody who has more in the tank for sure. Now they got to unlock that. And if you think about, if you want to move him, you probably are moving him before he's a fully realized player. There's enough in there that you would say to yourself, you're going to be selling low if you move him this offseason. And, and I just really like Sal Frelick. I can't, as a personality, I don't know if that translates to anything in baseball, but I think he is the type of player who could become a leader in this clubhouse. You're going to lose Willy Adames. Again, I don't know if leadership matters one iota in the game of Major League Baseball, but I don't think it's nothing. And Sal Frelick is the type of guy who's going to grow into that role. And I'd be loath to give up on him too early, because I do feel like that guy has a pretty good later part of his career in there.
Share the payroll on this team. They could have $15 million to spend on the offseason, maybe $30 million. Who knows? How do you see that payroll? I mean, the owner, Mark Attanasio, hasn't said anything about it. But I'm wondering if there's going to be some money to spend. They did spend a little money last offseason, not a lot, to get Hoskins. They may have to give him the $18 million if he opts in. But where do you see the spending in the offseason?
I think it's tight, in terms of their parameters, not in terms of. I think we all could say the Brewers should spend more money. I think they should spend more money, and I mean that earnestly. I think they should, but it also there's so many things working against it. One is if you factor in all of the arbitration eligible players that they have, there are already their payroll for next season is just about exactly what it was this past season, about $115 million. So you would have to assume that they would go up in payroll. They just won 93 games with what they had. They went up in wins from the year before when they subtracted payroll, and they went up from the year before when they subtracted payroll from 22 to 23. Like their model is working, and that hasn't included opening up the purse strings for even more. I loved the Rhys Hoskins signing at the time. I thought it was exactly the right guy. Was really into it. It fit what they needed. It has not worked out, and it's going to hurt them a little bit, because even though I would hope Rhys Hoskins has a little more in him for 25 than 24, maybe fully healed off of this knee surgery that he had, it's still a lot of money. That's $18 million is a lot of money to contribute. 1/6 of your payroll is going to be on a guy that I don't think you can rely on, certainly to be, I think he's a DH at best, and they pulled him out of the playoffs. Like Jake Bauers hit for him in the playoffs. Like I don't think it'll be quite that bad next year, but I don't know. It's not 18 million better. So that's tough. I don't anticipate them really getting involved with anybody in the free agency market that's going to really move the needle. There'll be some changes. There'll be some new names, but it's not, take that list of free agents you have, lop off the first 20 names, throw it in the ocean, and see what you got left over, I'm afraid.
It's always deflating when we talk that way, but that's just the reality with that. Hoskins, and Bauers hit the home run, but I wonder if Hoskins was ever pinch hit for when he was in Philadelphia, because Hoskins, your everyday first baseman, you're pinch hitting for him in the playoffs. I know it's righty lefty thing, but that just kind of told me something. I think if the Brewers had their way, they'd opt out on that. They would, if they had an option on that, they would opt out of this deal.
I think they would too. And that's, I like Rhys Hoskins, great guy. And again, I was really excited about the signing. It has not worked out. The only thing you can hope for, like I said, is that he is more healed next year, figure something out. But there was decline long before, there's decline before the injury. Like he's an older player at this point, older in quotes, but there were signs that this was headed downhill, and that it fell off a cliff wouldn't even be a surprise, even if he wasn't coming off of an injury. You never know. He still hit 26 home runs, bump that up to 30 next season, which I think is doable. Maybe have him play a lot less first base. I think that would be good, both for the team defense and maybe for him as a player. And, maybe you get a little bit more of a consistent bat out of that as well. That would be an ideal situation. Yeah. The
Brewers have said again that Yelich is not playing any first base. He's going to be in the outfield. You mentioned it kind of at the top about the health. And I would think that, Perkins I like Perkins as my fourth outfielder, even though he didn't hit great. He's so good defensively. And if you had to trade one of those other guys, I'm okay with Perkins being my fourth outfield. But Yelich, you'd love to be able to count on him even after this surgery. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, that's always going to be an issue. I mean, this is just a recurring thing. It's like Chris Middleton at this point. I mean, Chris Middleton was really, really healthy until he wasn't, and then it just
Great
never
analogy.
went away.
Yeah.
Christian Yelich is the same way. Very reliable bat when he's in there. Even when he was a little dinged up, he was still hitting the ball all around the ballpark. And I think the frustration is that he shows you that even when he's hurt, like when he even a little bit hurt, he is an elite offensive player. At least he has been the last couple seasons. He's unlocked something that was out of place is back in place. And it's just a shame that injury is keeping him from doing the things he want, to do what he keeping him off the field, plain and simple. I don't know what you can count on. I think if you go into a year thinking you hope to get 120 games out of Christian Yelich, you would feel pretty good about that. That's even maybe a little bit optimistic, but I think if you are able to get that threshold, you are in great shape. And I mean, he's under contract. There's no decision to be made with Christian Yelich. If he's healthy, he's playing. Maybe it's costly if you can't get him on the field, but there's nothing you can do about that at this point. He's a quality player, great leader, great part of this team. And, as long as he's healthy, he'll be out there, and that's just the way it goes.
The last two big free agents, I'm talking about the re-signing their own guys, Ryan Braun and Christian Yelich. We thought they were on a Hall of Fame track.
Yeah.
For different reasons. Attanasio commits the big bucks to both of those guys, and probably he's got buyer's remorse, at least with Braun. I mean, he didn't ever turn out to be a Hall of Famer because of obvious things, possibly. And then now with Christian Yelich, injuries may have sidetracked that type of career.
I mean, this is always the argument against long-term contracts, and it's even worse with pitchers who can blow out their arm at a moment's notice. This is why they traded Corbin Burns and tried to get something for that last year, and because there's no guarantee he even makes it through 2024. Now he did, but you go into the season just not knowing. Injuries are just too big a part of this game to commit. If you commit to Jackson Chourio, that's one thing, committing to his 20s. But most contracts, you're getting those signed at age 28. You're committing into their, age 35. That's the Willy Adames conundrum right now. I mean, Adames had a great career year, but he's in his peak. You sign him to a 6-year deal, you're maybe hoping to get 2 good years out of that and 4 bad ones. That's not a mistake that the Brewers can make. They've already made it, and it's cost them big time. It's like the Yankees sort of they have the flexibility to wait out Giancarlo Stanton, who really, saw a pretty big decline the last 3 years. But he's still a capable big leaguer, and then he gets into the playoffs and has an otherworldly streak. That's not something the Brewers would be able to withstand, is a player like that. And that's why, that's why they have to be really judicious. I completely agreed with the Yelich extension. I completely agreed with the Ryan Braun extension. At no point did I doubt that was the right move to make. But injuries are always going to make that complicated. It's always going to hold you back if you're a team that likes to hand those out.
And Adames is going to be 30 next year. It seems like the Dodgers are going to be not a bad place for him to go, but the Dodgers are going to be the front runner for him. He's going to a big market.
Yeah, he is. And I don't know if the Dodgers will end up being the ultimate destination, but it sure feels like someplace big market, and the Dodgers make sense because they could use a premier shortstop, and they've got the money to do it. And he's probably going to be the top shortstop on the market, or one of the top couple. And he's going to get paid. He deserves it. He had a great offensive season. He's a very good offensive shortstop. He defensively was very good until this past season. Maybe something can be tweaked there to get him back to a little bit more closer to that elite level that he was at. Tremendous help to the Milwaukee Brewers since they acquired him in 2021. He had a great run here, and pretty clear that he's not coming back. I mean, there's nobody is talking about it leaving that door ajar. It's like, well, sometimes we get beaten out by teams with more purse, more money, or, well, he's done a great job here. Everyone is speaking of this as it's like a done deal. And it is a done deal. And the Brewers, for their part, knew it was coming because they equipped themselves with a player like Joey Ortiz, who can slide from third base to shortstop and give you elite shortstop defense, hopefully some offense too. Hopefully there's more in there with that bat. But if there isn't, it's still decent for a shortstop. It's not Willy Adames good, but it's decent. And they'll have to replace him at third base. They've got a couple options. That's probably an area where they go outside the organization, but easier to do that than it is to replace a good shortstop. So they are prepared for this eventuality. And, like I said, they've found a way to keep winning even when the payroll goes down. So I think they probably have some creative solutions here too to help them get through this.
JR, thanks for taking some time today. Thank you.
Absolutely.
JR Radcliffe, my guy from the Journal Sentinel, covers everything, including our Milwaukee Brewers. That's going to do it for the podcast today. This is Chuck Freeman. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen to every day. And our second listen, go to Locked On MLB. Our guy Sully's got a look at the World Series coming up between the Yankees and the New York and the Los Angeles Dodgers. One of the New York teams, of course. The Yankees taking on the Dodgers, which will start on a Friday. Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day.